How are we doing, everybody? Thank you so much for listening at this point and now seeing another episode of Craig McKim Networking with me, your buddy, your host, Craig. And today is a little bit different. This is something that I haven't done in a long time. The first time I've actually ever recorded an interview. But I am here with a very special guest. She is, I'm going to go ahead and read this because she has so much stuff that she's accomplished that I know about, let alone the stuff I don't know about. So I have to read it. But allow me to introduce my guest. She is a mother of three. She is at least a two-time entrepreneur, formerly in sales for Tony Robbins events, then became a Tony Robbins trained life coach, now specializing in relationships. She's a recent grad with three college degrees. She's an author, a bikini competitor at 50 years old, and a coach for the TEDx speakers. She's also my coach. She's a great friend and just an all-around great person. I'm so happy to know her. Please, everybody say hi to Adrianne Luban. Adrianne, thank you for
Thank you, Craig. Thank you for having me.
This is absolutely my pleasure, and I think you know that. And this is a little bit different. Normally in my podcast or in my interviews, well, I guess I should say in my podcast, it's me talking about networking. Do this, say that, try this, think about this. But this is going to be a little bit different. We're not going to just focus on networking. We're going to focus a little bit on coaching. I've obviously, as you know, and for those of you listening, you've heard me talk about it in the past, if you've been here for any stretch. And I believe in it so much, how important coaching can be to somebody's life and to their development as a person, which also it leads to their development as a professional. So we're going to get into that first, so you can kind of get a behind the scenes to coaching and kind of what it entails or what it might entail. But then, of course, we're going to get into networking because that's what we do here. So with that said, I'm going to get into it right now. And Adrianne, how did you decide on coaching?
How did I decide on coaching? I remember like way back when in my Tony days, like working with Tony was like amazing. But Tony, I remember being in Landmark Education, and it was my first exposure to anything like personal development. And when I went into this place, I had no idea what to expect. And I was in sales in the mortgage banking business. And I remember sitting there and, there was like these forum leaders on stage and they were, asking questions of the audience. And I was watching these people stand up and share their stories and watching these people from the stage coach the person in the audience. And you would see these massive transformations before your eyes. And you could see just like the shifts in the aha in the room. And you could see how much lighter, like you could literally see years come off people. And I remember thinking, wow, instead of being really enthralled with the insights, which I was really fascinated with the people on stage. How do they do that? Like, I want to do that someday. Uh-huh. And that was like back in 93. Uh-huh. I've been in personal development now for a while. And since then I've got married and then I had kids and then I went through a really rocky divorce and I hadn't worked in like 13 years. And I thought that part of my life was over. And decided if I didn't know what I was going to do with my life after my divorce and after not working. And I was like, what the heck am I going to do with myself? Like, how am I going to raise these kids? I haven't worked in all this time. I'm 44. I have no college degree. And so I decided that if I didn't know what I was going to do, let me at least go back to college until I can figure out what it is that I want to do.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And there I met a professor by the name of Eric Robertson. And I was doing really well in the communication classes. And he asked me one day, he's like, Adrianne, what do you want to do with this college education? I said, well, what I'd really like to do is be a coach, but I have no idea how to be a coach. I don't know how to start asking questions. What do you do when somebody gets in your office? How do you even start? And he says, Adrianne, I need a communications coach. Will you be the coach to the communication students? And I'll set you up in the tutoring center and you'll even get paid for it. And so this coaching gig kind of found me, and it was like, and he supported me in that. And in that, I grew a lot. And then I also developed this map, which I think we'll get into a little bit later, but that kind of all transpired. And it just kind of took off naturally from there.
That was kind of that was the starting point. And though you had
that was a loaded question.
That's well, and thank you. And obviously, thanks for sharing that. It's tough. I mean, you have your ups and downs in life, and to be able to talk about it, I got to think part of that comes from coaching and your understanding and the training that you've gotten. It's just like you own it, and we've talked about that a number of times through our sessions. So good on you for being able to to talk about that and willing to share it certainly here. So I obviously I appreciate that. So that was the kind of the kickoff point. You started coaching these kids, and they but without any formal coaching training. But then you go and do that. If you wouldn't mind just a little bit on that. I know we didn't talk about that so much before, but like that was, after you were doing that, while you're doing that, it's like, oh, I should go do this. I should,
what was happening in the tutoring center was I was coaching them on to be better presenters. Okay. And it was really interesting because as they were presenting, you could see the challenges that they faced in life just through getting on the stage. And in that, I was coaching them through their challenges, which helped them get through them and be able to present differently when they got up to do their presentations, because we addressed those limitations. And so it was really interesting because I started making a lot of friends. It's, in college, and they'd come into the coaching tutoring room just to have sit down and have a talk with me because maybe they were struggling with something. And so it just became a natural thing, something what I did. And I'm also a big proponent on coaching. I mean, I have my own coach.
Right. Yeah. Well, and
so
we talked about that.
I had a coach back then as well.
Yeah. And it's in the book, Prosperous Coach, right? It's if you're offering coaching, you better have a coach yourself, because I mean, it's like that's it's just like one has to go with the other. So
there's always other levels to go.
Oh, well, and Tony Robbins, coach of coaches, he has coaches. They just happen to be Ray Dalio or Steve Wynn or any of those guys, but it's just,
right.
He has his own too. Yeah. So that offered that, I guess, that elevated or at least a different kind of perspective on everything. So you go in, you become a coach. Obviously, we've met, and I think kind of when we had met, you were kind of in personal development or life purpose coaching.
Yeah, life purpose coaching. And
obviously that, I made more progress in probably the last 4 years than I had in the initial or the previous 20. So that was, you unlocked something for me, and I was off and running.
Awesome.
Yeah. And so, but then you decide, like recently, or I guess in the last year, you've decided on relationship coach. So what does being a relationship coach mean for you?
Well, I started looking at what it was for me that shifted my life. And what shifted it was the relationship I cultivated with myself. And so, right behind here, which way am I? I have this saying that I found a long time ago, and I'm not sure where it originally is from, but it really spoke to me. And it's the most important relationship you will ever have in your life is the one with yourself. And I didn't know what that really meant. And I say it to my clients a lot too. I'll start off with that, and they don't really know what it means either until they begin developing that relationship, and they realize that what they begin to attract into their life is completely different than what they attracted from before. Because what happens is we're raised from our parents or our teachers or what have you, and we have all of their patterns loaded onto us. And a lot of times we don't even have a voice to speak because we're so busy using their voices that we learn to speak, and they're not our own. Right. And so we've got to get in there, and we got to peel back these layers of like, who are we being? Like, who am I? Is that my mom talking? Is that my dad talking? Is that my teacher telling me who I was? Or is that me? And it takes a little while to find your voice if you haven't used it. And that's why I got in trouble in some relationships in my past, because I was going into relationships going, I hope they like me. I hope they like me. And after
Right.
I got to really know myself and my relationships, it went more like, I wonder if I like them. I wonder if they're the right person for me.
Right. Right.
And
Totally
it was
different
just a
dynamic,
completely
right?
different conversation,
100%.
totally different dynamic. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So, absolutely. And I know that, that is something ever since we started working together. Obviously, I recognize it a lot more now. And I don't, and tell me if I'm wrong, but I think it's just something that you are constantly, I should say, I am constantly, I don't know what to call it, monitoring, but when that anxiety, comes up, it's like, okay, what's, what am I feeling and why? Where's it coming from? Am I doing this to myself? Am I being authentic? And is something I'm saying or something I'm doing, is that
Right.
not me? And how do I feel about it? And so, like, I know that I fall back on that a lot of, kind of who am I? Am I being me? Because I talk about that in my networking class. Like, you have to be authentic. And a lot of times there I
Yeah.
am, but as I think it's
Well,
more
and I
sometimes.
acknowledge you for that, because a lot of people don't even take the time to create that awareness around, hey, where am I coming from in this process? Am I coming from this place of fear in doing this, coming from this place of like excitement and I get to do this?
Yeah,
And it's a completely different place to come from.
yeah, for
And
sure.
sometimes it's really hard to discern where you're coming from, because when emotions are high, it's hard to tell, is this coming from my head or is this coming from my heart?
Uh,
And sometimes, unless you really get to know yourself, you don't really know where it's coming from.
yeah, and you got to
So
spend time, and you
good
have to be
on you.
willing to spend time to do that. Yeah,
Yeah, it does take a little time to do that.
yeah, it does.
I'm still learning.
Yeah. Well, and which is good to hear from somebody for like me who
Yeah,
has
yeah,
been, working with you for, obviously we started off, where it was just like we're doing all this work and we're peeling stuff back and we're trying to get to the root of everything. And then you
yes,
do, and it's like, okay, and now you start to rebuild. And and then now we're not working together as much as we did, but there's like, whenever it was last month or 2 months, it's like, let's get something in the books. I gotta kind of work through this, and I want you to hear it. And does this
yeah.
sound right? In the whole conversation we had. But um, anyway, not about me. So
And
uh,
sometimes just talking to people, though, you can hear yourself, and that in itself helps you, right?
yeah,
I
for
remember
sure.
somebody told me a long time ago, when I first got into coaching, and I was like all nervous about coaching and, oh my God, what if I do something wrong and all these things. And somebody once told me, going, Adrianne, if somebody just walked out to a telephone pole and all they did was tell their problems to a telephone pole, they're going to get some benefit out of that,
Yeah, yeah,
because they're able to at least get it out. They can hear themselves talk and they can
yep,
possibly come up with their own answers.
yep. Uh, so with that, you say anybody can walk out of the door. So who would benefit from working with like, let's say, not necessarily a relationship coach, because obviously there like that's, you start to get specific with that, but like a personal development, a life purpose coach, like who does benefit from that?
Well, a lot of people, what I remember, if I just go back to how I got into it, it's like, how the hell did I end up here? Like, how did I get here? Here I am, 44 years old. I'm divorced. I have 3 kids.
Yeah,
I have no college education. How did I get here? That was like,
yeah,
for me, it was like, how the heck did I get here? And
yeah,
how am I going to, where am I going to go from here? And so for me, that was a big thing, just, in finding out how I got here. And I realized that I had all the things that were coming up were the same challenges that were coming up before. There was, in relationships and things like that. And I'm like, I'm the common denominator in this. It's one thing if it happened once, but there was a couple things that were happening continuously. And I'm like, I've got to get me figured out so that I stop this pattern. So anybody who's going through like a midlife crisis, anybody who's having a struggle in their personal relationships, anybody who's just come to that going, I've done the same thing over and over and I want to get a different result. Tony Robbins always said, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over and over again. So to come to a coach, it's like we can take you right out and get you doing things a little bit differently. So,
and it's so funny how quickly it can actually happen if you're willing to commit to it. If you really want that, like not walking into a coach's office or a therapist or a counselor and saying, fix me. It's like,
right.
no, I'm ready. I understand that
Yeah.
I'm the common denominator.
Good point.
I need
Very
to,
good point.
I need to do the work now. And
Yes.
every time I would say, you got this out of me. And you're like, no. You did the work. I helped steer you. That was it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It's
then
true.
there's a level of pride that you start to have in yourself, which starts to change that relationship with yourself. And you start to tell yourself different things that were different from before of getting the same result. So
Yes.
it's a pretty quick shift. I mean, if you're willing to go through it and you get to the bottom of it, you're like, oh, and it's almost like, why would I do that? How did I let that happen? Now that I know, that's done. And it can like and I don't know if you remember the conversation we had, but it was somebody essentially like when I was young, very young, asking me if I was stupid. And
Yes.
that clung to me for 30 years without
Yeah.
me even thinking about it. But it was there clearly, but it was
Yeah.
right below the surface. And as soon as you said that, we had a couple-minute conversation and you go, well, Craig, let me ask you something. I said, yeah. I said, are you stupid? And I said, no. And you said, good, moving on. And that's how quick it was. Now, we made reference to it in future sessions, but
Right.
it was as soon as I identified an old thought that I had, I told myself something different and I kept moving forward. And so that was, and
Yeah.
that's how quick it was. I forget what session that was in, but I was also open to doing it. So that's a big part of it. Right? Yeah.
And I always say you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. So you can
100%.
come in and you can get the great information, but what are you doing once you leave my office, right?
Yep.
And that's all on you. So we can get all those great little tidbits, but if you're not doing anything with them, then you're coming in and getting great little tidbits. But right now we're in a world that it's not just about reading the information. Like in the past, we used to read a lot of great books and learn a lot of great information and get a lot of great knowledge. And it's like, great, we got a lot of self-esteem, but what are you going to do with that? And the difference is that you've got to take action on the things and that's where coaching is different, because it's like, okay, so what are we going to do with this? How are you going to notice when this shows up into your life? And what steps are you going to take to make the shifts once you notice it?
Yeah.
And
the action.
where do all these things show up so that we prepare you to be out there so that when it does show up, you know exactly how you're going to be with it.
And you recognize it right now. And and I don't know how that all works. I mean, I guess I do kind of, but just the way that it happened for me, it's like you put yourself on notice, but in a good way, of like things that you think, I don't want this in my life anymore. Like now I've identified it. Now it's like, it's there. Okay. Now it's, now I'm going to get rid of it. So, so one of the, I wrote this down and it says, or I guess is there, but what one question do you hear the most when somebody should actually be asking a different question, or like they're asking this? Here's what I hear the most, but what they should actually be asking is this question. And if you understand that and how I'm phrasing that, like, so I guess the question is, are people asking the right questions in general, but is there like one that you've gotten more when you're like, that's not what you should be asking, it really should be this?
Right. So you're basically asking, so this person comes in, they ask this, and it's like, no, that is not the question. It actually is this, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So in that question, the first thing that comes to mind is there's a lot of people who come in and it's like, this person's doing this to me, or they're treating me this way, and they're treating me like I'm just gum on a shoe, or that I'm a piece of crap, or, why are they lying to me? Or, there's all these things, right, of why somebody's doing something to you. But it's not so much about what people are doing to you as much as, why have you put yourself in a situation like that?
Mhm. Okay.
It's more like, why did you put yourself there? So a lot of people come in and it's like, it's them, it's them, it's them, but it's an inside job. I always say we're working from the inside out. And so there's something that we're attracting energetically in the way that we're being, and we choose to put ourselves there. We choose not. And so that little
Okay.
shift that I did in relationships, going, does he like me? Does he like me? Does he like me? Instead going, wait a minute, let me make sure that this is a fit for me. Because I used to jump right in and I'd get attached, and then I'd find myself attached, and then I couldn't get unattached.
Right.
And I
Yeah.
thought, you know what, I don't want to do this because I know what I've attracted in my past. And I don't want to jump into something and then find that I've attracted myself to the same person. It's like, let me just let them show themselves a little bit and make sure this is something that I want to put myself into.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because bottom line, I have control of whether I put myself into a situation or not.
So it's not so much a question. I mean, it sounds like it's really just a mindset of it's them, not me. How do I
Yeah.
get them to treat me better? Kind of,
Yeah.
I guess if there was a question, that might maybe be it, instead
And
of,
how do you get them to treat you better? Who
yeah,
would you have to treat better first?
who's the most important in the relationship you have, you know? And so it's
And
always
when you treat
starts in the
that,
mirror.
yeah, I was working with somebody yesterday, and it was in regards to support. And I remember having this challenge. Like, I remember when I got out of that marriage, I had no support around me.
Mhm.
And I was essentially an island on my own. And what I kept going, I have no support. That person has support. That person has support. I don't know how to get support. And then what I realized is that I had to learn how to support myself.
Mhm.
And once I got, like what it was to support myself. So I supported myself by going back to school. I supported myself by putting my butt in the gym and getting in shape. I supported myself by being the best mom I could possibly be. And I arranged things in a way that was like really supportive in what I was doing and what I was up to in life. And in that, all of a sudden I started attracting support. So it's how we do anything is how we do everything. So if we're saying one thing, but we're doing another, we're not supporting ourselves. So we got to get those little, if I say something like, I'm going to go to the gym today, and then I don't do it, I'm not supporting myself going to the gym.
Promises to yourself. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's how you build up self-esteem. That's how you build up confidence, by following through on the things that you say that you're going to do.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You, excuse me, you had mentioned before, just kind of in passing, and we had talked about this, is your map to more.
Mm.
And so I'd like to hear you talk about that a little bit.
All right. So this was like a huge break for me.
Okay.
This map to more was before I became like a coach. This came to me, I had had a lot of coaching from Deb. I had had all my coaching from the past with Tony and in landmark education and all of that. And I couldn't figure out how to go from point A to point B consistently. And so I would get in these challenges, and then I would go to my coach to help me figure it out, because I didn't know how to figure it out for myself. So I found over time that it was like, I don't want to be dependent on somebody. I want to be dependent on myself to figure this stuff out. And I didn't know how to do it. And through all that training, I had these dreams, and I was seeing shapes and like resets and all this stuff. And it had been happening for almost a year, where I'd wake up and I felt like I was on the verge of something. Like I feel like I feel like I'm on the verge of a breakthrough, but I wasn't sure. And so one morning I woke up, I had the same thing, and it was just so close. I thought, I'm like, I feel like I finally have all the answers. And then I'm like, then it would go away. And I'm like, let me grab my notepad. I'm going to just start putting everything out I know on paper. And I just started drawing and about 4 hours go by, and I had no idea that much time it had lapsed, because I'd started off with a cup of coffee and just going crazy. And then when I was done, I just went, whew. I was like, what was that? And then I got up and I looked, and I'm like, what the is this? And I'm like, huh. And I started seeing how things matched up, and there was like this mirror thing, this effect. And essentially what it was the map of how to get out of what I call now the vortex of doom,
Right.
which is the fear-induced response that creates this compensator, a behavior that you have that has a language all its own.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the pattern part of it. And it's like, that's the part that we're not aware of. And so I help my clients become aware of that. And when I began to see this, I was like, oh my God, that's how that works. And I was, oh my gosh, what are all my vortexes? What are they? And so I started listing out all my vortexes of not being smart enough, not being good enough, not being lovable enough. And then I was like, how do I compensate for that? I get stuck. I feel like I can't move. I avoid things. And there was a specific way that I was being with the fear that was evoked in me. And I had a language about it. But nobody's going to think I'm good enough. Nobody's, I got to figure this out. I can't do this. And I try and I try. And it's like, there was this whole thing. And then what I realized, the piece to get out of the vortex was like this other piece, which was the creating awareness around it. And creating awareness got you out of, then you had to exercise what I call emotional intelligence, which is like this reset, which is the stop. And then we disengage, let your emotions settle to get out to the other side. So, and then there's a whole nother side that mirrors that it's like when you begin to take on these behaviors, it switches, it's a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what I did was I took this map and I utilized it in my marriage that was like really icky, so I had a divorce and we were not talking, and it was just like, it was a really tough thing with kids. And I took this map and I began realizing where all of my hooks were going. Oh, when he says that I'm this or that, I go into this. And so I would get on the phone with him and he would know how to push my buttons.
Uh-huh.
But I had my map there and I'm like, he's not going to push my buttons. I'm going to stay. I'm not going to let him vote. I was prepared. I was ready.
Mm-hmm.
And so all of a sudden he would say something that would hook me and I'd be like, and then I got to the point and I exploded and screw the map. The map didn't work. But then I'm like, oh, dang, I got off the phone. And then I came back and it was like, eventually comes back around and I had to have a conversation with them again. And I'm like, okay, no, this time I'm going to stay. I'm going to stay. And so I began utilizing this map as something to be in front of me to really help me through some of the emotional challenges that I was having, because I would react to what he has to say in this defense that I felt like I had to prove something. I thought I had to defend something. I wanted to win, like all these things that are ego traits that are compensators that want to win. And I realized that I didn't have anything to prove to him. Just because he says it's so doesn't make it so. And so that's what I would start saying. I had this new mantra in my head. And every time he would hook me with something like I'm not smart or any of those things, mm-hmm. I'd be like, just because he says it doesn't make it so. And I don't even need to fight that. I don't need to challenge that. I don't even need to win that argument. He can think whatever he wants.
Right.
And by going in and him not hooking me, it was like it shifted the whole relationship. Mm-hmm. And now we're really good friends. And I think it was about a year or two after that, we took our kids skiing as friends. And, it healed the relationship by me not getting hooked. So when people come to me, it's like, I'm having a challenge in my relationship. Does my significant other need to come in? I'm like, all it takes is one to shift the relationship. Because mm-hmm. when you get it, they will automatically get it. When I shifted, it shifted the way that my former husband treated me.
Huh. Okay.
So when I got it, he got it, right? It was like, because I taught him how to treat me before. I didn't respect myself.
Sure. Yeah.
Yep. And therefore he didn't respect me. Mm-hmm. But I was trying to get respect from him all the time. But it wasn't about getting respect out there. It was about enough respecting myself and drawing my boundaries. Mm-hmm. That when he would start saying the things, I'm like, you know what? I really want to have a conversation with you, but with you slinging these things at me, it's just not the kind of conversation I want to have. When you really want to have an adult conversation, I'm more than happy to do it. I'm letting you know I'm hanging up now. I'm hanging up. If you want to talk, I'm here. If you want to have a real conversation, click. Uh-huh. And then he'd call me back. okay, I'm sorry, let's have a conversation. I'm like, great, I'm so into having a conversation with you. And so I had to reteach him how to treat me. And you go through some uproar in that, in the process, but when you keep at it and you keep taking action, it's completely doable.
Yeah. And it's funny that probably not only did that help with him, but that would help. That's where it started, potentially that I need to have the respect for myself with him. That's who I have to beat, or that's who I have to manage. Let's just maybe as kinder words, but then that would lead to the and anything that you decided to do. I am good enough. I am smart enough. And doggone it, people like me, right?
He was my best teacher, Craig.
Yeah.
I mean, he was the most challenging, but he was my best teacher because he woke up all these things in me, all these insecurities in me. And they were things that I needed to heal within myself. And once I healed those, he could know me. And that's the thing about coaching. When you heal yourself from the inside, things automatically shift on the outside. It's an inside job. And that's why we have absolutely 100% control in everything that we do and what shows up in our life. Yeah.
Well, and speaking from the inside out, on your website, you talk about building your house and how our physical house, and like the thing that we actually go into, we open the door and we live in, we hire professionals to do that, to help us kind of design the dream and all that other stuff. But when it comes to the one like that, like we're the house and what we have going on inside of us, we kind of, I'll get to it.
Who built our house?
Right. Yeah. So
the original builders of our house, our parents.
Right.
Right. The people who raised us were the original builders. And I don't know. It's like, I don't know if I look at my parents, they've got great taste, but it's not the kind of house that I want to build. And so I remember working with my my coach. She was like, Adrianne, we got to go in. We got to we got to take that foundation out, because that foundation that you've built everything on is shaky. And we got to go in and build a solid foundation of who you are and what you want in your life, and then be okay to trust that. Right. And so you got to go in and you got to build a solid foundation to stand on, so that when things like my former husband would say things to me, I was unshakable.
Yeah.
Because I knew who I was. Where before, the foundation that I was on was, the moment he said it, I was like going crazy and defending myself and trying to prove myself. Right. And so when you really get to know who you are, there's just this foundation that you lay that is so solid. There could be all kinds of things come up, but if you know who you are beyond a shadow of a doubt, it can't shake you. And it doesn't mean that I don't get shaken, because I still get shaken. And I always have the saying that it's like, you know what? Oh my God, this is like a really tough thing that I'm going through. Oh my God, this is big. This is going to be a big breakthrough. This is going to be a big one. I'm going to learn big from this one, so the bigger and harder they are, it's like, I know that it'll pass. And I'll make it through the other side. And in the process, it's a little challenging going through, but when I get out the other side, I'm like, I'm stronger, I'm better, I'm better for it. So what doesn't kill us makes us stronger.
Right. And then you said, it's like, we'll hire, we try to deal with that we try to deal with it on our own without seeking, like, we're going to build a house. No, I'm just gonna dig the hole, pour the footer, and I'll just, and I'll wing it.
Yeah.
And what you just said, you started with it, is like, my coach, from her perspective, looking at me, getting to know me, came to me and said, the one that you're on, no good. We are gonna have to re-pour it. We're gonna have to re-pour the foundation, and then we'll start building. But you went to somebody for that. Instead of like, I'm going to figure it out on my own, or if I need,
I tried.
I'm weak. Right. And that's the thing. It's like, you get people that can, and who is the common denominator? What is the common denominator in your life? And it always comes back to you. So like, I think that's
And that's where my map came in, because it's like, yeah, we want to get help, and we want, because people can see things labeled differently. It's like somebody once said in the Tony Robbins organization, they're like, when you're in the jar, you can't read the label on the outside that says peanut butter.
Right.
You're just in it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so having a coach, they can actually see the label and help you out of the jar that you're
Right.
in.
Right.
And so I just always found that, but with the map, not only do you have somebody with a perspective, but you have a consistent way to go. And so I kind of tell people that one of the things that they're going to learn is how to coach themselves in the process, so that you can get through those day-to-day things on your own.
Mm-hmm.
You don't always need to lean on something. And then when you really want to grow, a coach is really great, because we can take you to the next level.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's exactly how I felt going through it, because it was piece by piece. And then you do have a breakthrough, and you have it. And then that's it's like, holy cow, if they can do that for me, what else can I do that can, that I can bring it to them? And then there's the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. You talk about, and again, on your website, clients already having the answers that they need.
Mm.
If they're coming to you,
Yeah,
if they have the answers.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I say, if they have the answers, why are they coming to you? Because I would say they don't feel like they do. So please, just kind of elaborate on that.
Right. So we all have the answers within us. It's just that maybe we don't trust the answers that come up, and we feel like we're so used to going outside of ourselves for the answers. We're not used to going inside to find our own answers. Somebody once gave me an analogy not too long ago, about that your brain is like an elephant, and we're like the little drivers on top of the elephant. And I don't know about you. Have you ever ridden an elephant before?
I have not.
Or have you ever seen the guy that drives the elephant?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So if we look at our brain as the elephant, because our brain is a glorified tool. It has all kinds of information it stores. We have a lot of automatic memory. I know how to play guitar. Thank goodness for my brain, because the repetition is just there when I pick it up.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't want to be on automatic pilot all the time. And the brain is a great automatic pilot. And it's like the elephant, it'll start actually, it'll do things without you being aware that you're doing it. And so we want to be more of the driver of our brain, like what's going on up there. Mm-hmm. And we want to be able to, be the one on top guiding the elephant. And if we're not aware of the elephant, if we're not aware of our brain, then our brain just goes all over the place.
Right.
And so the more we get to know our brain, the more we create awareness around our patterns, the more we can drive where it is that we want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. That's.
And I probably butchered that analogy because it's a new one, but I thought, oh my gosh, it's like, I imagine getting up and kind of pushing the elephant, like that elephant wins.
Yeah.
And it's like, I got to get to know my brain so well that I know how to maneuver it.
And you've shared that with me before. I remember talking about that, and it's so big. And if you're the driver and you're not vigilant, and that the elephant can get away from you, because it's just going to do what it wants, right? And
yes,
which is exactly
yes.
how your brain goes. If you're not conscious of not only thinking, but of the thoughts that you're having, it's often running, and then everything's worst case scenario, because the brain is built to protect us. Like that's like it's survival. It's always in survival mode. And so, and to cruise along, and this is normal, and this is what we're doing, and this is how we don't take risks. So when you take risks and your brain's going, whoa, 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 what are you doing? Or you leave it alone for so long, it starts to go down a path that it has no business going down.
Yeah.
And then how did I get here? Mm-hmm. I'm 44 years old. I'm like, I haven't been paying attention to what I've been thinking or doing.
Yeah.
I need to change that. So yeah, that's cool.
Thank you for summing that up for me.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, you've done it for me enough times. I thought I could return it once. So we're going to move off of that, off the coaching. I think that is great. I think people hopefully will see they got to see the value in having at least an initial conversation with the coach, whether it's you, which we'll talk about where to find you later and how they can get in touch. But I want to talk real quick. What are your degrees in? And would you consider that what you've done personal or professional development, or is it kind of a little bit of both? And I'll reiterate if you need me to, but which one was the most fun to get, and which one is the most challenging? Which,
Mhm.
and they may be they may be the same.
Yeah, so I have degrees. I actually found out I had four,
Mhm.
one by accident, just because I
Oh,
had so many
okay.
requirements. But
That's awesome.
communications, psychology,
Uh-huh.
human development,
Mhm.
and liberal arts.
Okay.
And so my favorite by far is communications.
Yeah,
I
I can see that.
love communications.
Yeah, yeah. And you're great at it.
um, that was the funnest to getting up and giving presentations and, really learning how to put something and structure to something and then deliver it. That's a lot of fun.
Mhm.
Um, I would say, I don't know that I would just say my last class was probably my challenging. It was in psychology. And it was in human development, taking you from the fetus all the way to, old age when you die. And so the professor was asking us
That's a
to
lot.
write papers. And so I look at this as both personal and professional development, because I had to get over a lot. I was like a 1.5 uh, grade average in high school, and I didn't have a college education, right? So going back to school for me was like, absolutely not. I'm not smart enough. I was in dummy classes, is what they called them back
Right,
then,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
And so I had this thing that I was dumb and that I couldn't keep up with other kids and all these things. And so going back to school really showed me that it wasn't that I was dumb or stupid and all these things that I always thought I wasn't, not smart enough. Um, but it was more that I didn't apply myself. And so I got to shift that story.
Mhm.
So in that way, it was personal development for me, because that I had this thing that I wasn't smart enough for the longest time. And I don't have that story so much anymore. It still creeps up time to time and things that
Right.
I'm not familiar with, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Um, and so that was a huge thing for me. And I also remember sitting in math class when I was a kid and the teacher yelling at me, and I always like would bust into tears, and I would get so frustrated that my emotions would start to rise and it would block all the information from me. And
Hmm.
I remember going back, sitting in pre-algebra in college, and I'm like, the same stuff was happening as when I was like, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old. And I
Yeah.
was just,
Yeah.
oh my God, I feel like a kid sitting here in class, like all the same stuff was coming up.
Sure.
And then I'm like, wait a minute, you've got new tools now, Adrianne. You don't have to get this frustrated. But I don't know it. And she's going so fast. And it looks like everybody else in the class knows it. How come I don't know it? So I had the same story coming up. And I'm
Hmm.
like, Adrianne, stop it.
Yeah.
Just stop it. So I began to look at the board, because I noticed that when my emotion came up, it blocked all the information. And I'm like, let me do this differently. Okay, so she starts at this board. There's a board here. There's like 4 boards in. By the time she gets to the 5th board, when she turns the corner, I'm just like, I was gone after the 3rd board.
Right. Yeah.
But I'm like, let me just soak this in and let me just trust that I have the information. And by the time I get to the tutor, everything that I need to know will be there. And whatever isn't there, the tutor will fill it in. And so
Right.
I began to just enjoy my math classes because I wasn't making myself wrong in them. I was just like in there soaking up the information and knowing that I would get it handled. And so all the writing of the papers really helped me. And you said that I'm an author. I'm not an author yet. I'm working on being an author. So it's helping me in my book.
I have a book.
You
I have a book
do?
with your name on it. Oh yeah.
Oh, my handout. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
That
guess.
counts. That
Yeah.
wasn't easy. I remember when you were working on that. You're like, this is such a challenge. And how do I publish it? What do I do? And I'm like,
Yeah.
and and
Yeah.
and you did all that stuff. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
am
you're an
looking
author.
to expand that before I really like publish it,
Sure.
right? So I
I
give
get
that
it.
handout to my clients because it's the map, it gives them the directions and all of that. But
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely. Thank
Yeah.
you for reminding me of
Yeah,
that little
absolutely. I
piece.
loved it. Yeah, I still have it. It's on my phone. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it.
So all right, cool. Now,
Did I
given
answer
that,
your question?
what's that? Yeah, no, you did.
Did I answer
Absolutely. It
your
was
question?
what was most fun, what was
Okay,
most
good, good.
challenging, what your degrees in, all that. Yeah, for sure.
Got it. Got
Um,
it.
so now, we have, I mean, that was a bulk of it, but we're just going to talk about networking here a little bit now.
Okay.
And I think I sent you the question, how do you approach networking? And you can answer that however it feels best to you. How do you look at
So
it?
I've been in school for a while, right? And that was like, this is one area that I meet a lot of people. It's natural networking,
Yeah.
right?
Sure.
So wherever I go, I could be standing in a line at a grocery store, and if I'm hitting it off with somebody, that's networking.
Mhm.
I remember one day I went down because I ran out of coffee, and I walked down to the store, and I was just like,
Is this I spilled a coffee?
yes,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Great
won't go
story.
into the
Please share it, because like and start from when it happened. And because
oh my gosh.
I love your
Okay.
reaction to the coffee
All right.
moment. So please.
So I had instant coffee, and this instant coffee tastes like ass. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna say it.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't want to go down to the store. I don't want to, let me just have this cup of coffee. And I was working on my computer. So I made this cup of coffee, sat down with my computer, and I went to grab something and hit the handle of the coffee, and this full mug went splat all over my floor. It was all over the refrigerator, all over the cabinets, all over. I mean, it was just a mess, right? And think about getting up first thing in the morning and you're just all groggy. I mean, last thing you want to do is, clean up spilled coffee. And I'm like, and I spilled, and I'll never forget how it felt. I just looked at it and I'm like, huh, all right. Looks like I'm gonna have to grab a sponge. And I didn't make it mean anything. I'm just like, looks like I'm gonna have to grab a sponge.
Right.
So I got down there and I start wiping it up, and I'm noticing like, oh, that needs a little cleaning, and ooh, that needs a little cleaning. And the next thing I knew, I was like making my kitchen spotless. And I felt really good when I was done,
Right.
because my kitchen and my floor was
Right.
more clean than it was to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I went to go make another instant, and I'm like, no, I don't deserve that instant. I'm gonna go down and get me a great fresh cup of coffee. And I'm going to walk there. It was a beautiful, crisp morning.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got my sweats on and I walked down to the store, and I was like, it was crispy air and the birds were out. And I'm like, God, I'm so glad that my coffee spilled, right? And I'm just enjoying it.
Yeah.
So I get into the coffee area and as I'm looking at the coffee, this woman comes up behind me and she's like, wow, I love your hair. And we just start talking, right? And the next thing we know, we get into this conversation. So what do you do? And I tell her that I'm a coach, and she's like, oh my God, I need a coach. And so I ended up getting a client because of that spilt cup of coffee and networking in the aisle at the grocery store.
Yeah.
So
I loved it because I love the reaction. I love it because I remember when you first told me that, however long ago it was, I'm like, I'd have probably been up in arms. Oh, every time, just whatever story I'm telling myself about the cup of coffee that I just spilled.
Yeah.
It didn't mean anything. Oh, probably clean that up. And then you kill it, you clean it, the kitchen's clean, which in and of itself, you think about, okay, you cleaned your kitchen, but it's like, who likes to do that? Who likes to clean? But for whatever reason, that day it worked. And you went through a different process.
Yeah.
I owe myself, I've earned a fresh cup of coffee. So, and I know the store that you went to, and I know they got great coffee down there. And because you took the time, I cleaned it up, and then you happen to run into this person.
Yeah.
And you end up with a client. You don't know what any of this stuff means. It's just, and it's what we assign to it. And sometimes you can assign nothing to it, like you did with the coffee.
Like in my past, I might have looked at it and went, damn it, I spilled my coffee. It's going to be a crappy day.
Yeah. Right.
And then there's a whole nother way that you go about your day, right? As a result of that, and you declare that it's going to be a crappy day, it's going to be a crappy day. And I decided if you're going to make up a story, you might as well make it a good one.
Yeah.
Well, so I made up a good one of, hey, gonna clean my floors up.
Yeah. And
shine them up a little bit.
Jared Robbins will say that. Yeah, I'm sure somebody else has said it, but I saw him quoted initially. It was like, did you have a bad day, or did you have a bad 5 minutes that you milked for the rest of the day?
Right.
And it's just like, oh yeah. And I remember like
Yeah,
that hits my head often when
I love it.
something weird,
I
you know,
love
just
it.
something that really
Yeah,
should mean
yeah.
nothing, but yeah. So how important, especially in your business, is how important it is networking, and or how it has it impacted your business
It's
and
very,
life too. I
well,
mean,
it's very important because if I didn't have networking, I wouldn't have met the people that I have that have helped me grow my business.
mhm,
You can't grow your business just sitting at home, not really doing anything. Like, people make the business, right? And so networking is everything. And it's like, it's through my network that people who have come in and had coaching and had really great experiences and walked out with transformations, they refer me. So now my network is actually working for me versus me having to go out and, hit it really hard.
right. Your
So, but
network
it
is
all
working
starts
for
with,
you. Yeah.
yeah,
I want anybody who's listening, I want you to hear that my network is working for me. And that's the big idea.
mm,
That is your sales force, that is your marketing team, along with you, because you continue to do it and you continue to stay in touch. And anytime anybody hears anything about, or it says anything about coaching, or or if I see somebody that I feel like needs it, I mean, like, I'm doing my own thing. I've kind of come off of the direction I was going, where I'm just getting into networking and helping people do it better. But anytime somebody comes up, they got a problem, they got something, they're stuck, whatever. I'm like, you should. I know a girl. This, you got to talk to her. She's fantastic.
thank you.
Yeah, no,
Thank
of
you.
course. I mean,
Yeah, I've had a few of your referrals coming my way.
yeah, yeah,
And I
yeah.
met
No,
you at a networking function.
what's that?
I met you at a
I
networking
know,
function,
right? No, absolutely. And it was funny
right?
because I was standing there, and you just kind of appeared. And for those, I mean, clearly there haven't been people, like, people that are seeing this probably haven't seen you in person or something, but you carry an aura around you that is kind of like, it's glowing. And when you showed up, the whole group looked at you, because I think you were talking to me or you just stepped in. I don't remember, but everybody just kind of turned and looked at you. And
Oh,
it was there's an automatic click with you most of the time. I got to think with most people, you just
thank
have
you.
your it's presence. We've
Thank
talked
you.
about how, of course, we talk about how Tony, when he's talking to somebody, when he's in a crowd of 10,000 people and he's talking to one person, he's talking to
It
one person.
cuts through you like
Like,
nothing. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what else?
Oh, and
Yeah,
I met my boyfriend networking.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Funny enough,
Yeah.
that's
In a networking function.
yeah, a couple of
Yeah.
girlfriends I've had. Yep, absolutely. What else have you gained due to networking? I mean, you have your business, but
My boyfriend.
well, yeah, I guess, yes. Okay. Moving on to the
Right?
next one.
A relationship.
Right. Yeah. No, it's a good, no, absolutely. Absolutely. So let me ask you this. What are your, for what you have done, maybe based on really what you do as a coach, what would be your top 10 or top 3 tips to people, for networking, for people to do, whether you want to address coaches directly or just small businesses or just people looking to make friends? Like, what were the top 3 things that you would say somebody
Top
should do?
things. So, um, know your strengths.
Mhm.
And that's a really tough one, right? Like you just said about me, that I have this aura, right? I've heard that a lot. I've heard that I have
Yeah,
like this
I've heard that.
automatic energy, and I don't know that I have this, but after being told it a lot, I used to like just refute it and just like, oh yeah, whatever. I used to just like, people give you compliments and you're like, yeah, whatever.
Uh,
And so instead of doing that, I learned to go, you know what? If enough people are saying that, maybe there's some truth to it. So I started, when I was doing a lot of my personal development work, I went around and I asked people, what are the top 5 things that stand out to you about me? And one of the, I got inspiration, magnetic, very personal, like people just automatically get along with me. And there was like a couple other things, right?
yeah.
Magnetic. And so I thought, oh, these are things that I don't have to try at. This is just something I'm naturally good at.
Mhm.
So I remembered I wanted to run an experiment. And my experiment was to go to a networking meeting where I knew absolutely nobody, somewhere down in San Diego, and not to try and do anything. I was just going to let my presence do it, right? Just to
Mhm.
see if there was any truth.
Yeah.
So I get there and it's awkward because the first thing you want to do is like try to get in with a group because it's awkward sitting by yourself. But I'm like, no, you're good by yourself. You don't need to talk to anybody. You know, you're not stupid. So quit pretending that you are,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
so I thought, okay, I'm just going to enjoy this. And I went and grabbed my food and I grabbed a glass of wine and I sat over in the corner and I'm like, I was like, the little thoughts came up. Gosh, this is uncomfortable. Adrianne, just own being in your space and be good about it. If anybody needs you, they will find you. So I'm sitting there by myself. And within a couple minutes, I had people gravitating towards me and talking to me and, you know, starting conversation. Like I didn't have to try. And I'm not saying that that's something that everybody has to do because everybody has different strengths.
Mm-hmm.
It's find those strengths. You don't got to work on those.
Mm-hmm.
Just show up.
Mm-hmm.
And so for
Just
me,
be.
that was a huge, just be, just be who you naturally are. And if people have told you something about you a number of times, start to believe it.
Right.
You know, some people might be told, hey, you're a great storyteller. Well, start to believe that,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like there might be something to that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're really good on one-on-ones and people tell you that, maybe that's something for you to consider. Like, and you don't even have to try because you know you're just good at one-on-ones, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so whatever that is. The other thing is in regards to networking, what I love about networking is that it gives me the opportunity to do the things I love to do. So I love to go to the gym. And so I network at places that I can go have fun. It's like, oh, I'm working today. I'm networking. I'm
Yeah.
at the gym, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's
And
you got to
so
pick. You got to pick some place that you want to go, or
yeah, and then you
like
find
you said, you want to
like-minded
do.
people, right?
Mm-hmm.
That are into the same thing and you get to know
Mm-hmm.
them naturally. And I don't try to sell anybody because that's not my deal.
Mm-hmm.
I just simply show up and just get to know people because I just love people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so yeah, so get to know who you are, show up in your space, network in the places that you absolutely that are more your type of places that you would find yourself naturally.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if I have a number 3.
Okay. Those are
What's your
those are good. That one there, the people. So often when we start talking about networking, people's like, oh, I know I have to do it. I really don't want to go to that. You know, it's like, well, you know, so why don't you want to go to it? It's like, is it because you just don't like networking because you haven't found, you know, success with it, or you don't like it for whatever reason, or I like it, but I don't want to go there. The last time I was there, it's like, well, there might be different people. Well, why don't you find a place that you would like to be, that you would like to go to? I talk about that. Like,
yeah,
who do you want to be in business with? And it doesn't necessarily have to be the same, like the business end of it. It's what are the type of people that you want to be around? You know, as you know, and we've talked about, I'm into executive protection and personal protection, and I'm not doing as much of that work anymore, but it's the type of people that I want to be around. And so I've really poured myself into talking about networking within that industry. And so now I'm not the guy, but I'm a guy that really that talks about that a lot.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that's how I'm identified. I like being there. So if you
yeah,
like to be at the gym, or if you like to, you know, what if you like to be, in your case, if you like to be at the beach, if you like to be here or there, or
yes.
these are the type of people that I want to be around, that's where you go to network.
And then it's just it's a
And
natural
you're
thing.
not there's no put on, I'm not, and another, I just want to share this real quick. There, excuse me, there, I want to share this real quick. There was a phrase that I said to you a lot. And one day
I
you
think I
called,
know
and one day you called me on it.
it.
And I was like, and you're like asking me what I was doing and what my plans were. And I'm like, well, I'm, this, I'm trying to do that, I'm trying to do this, I'm trying to do this. And you're like, Craig, you do a lot of trying. What are you just gonna do? And I was like, well, shit. Okay. Could be like that. But that was it. That I it was removed from my vocabulary. And now it comes out and it might be,
Yeah,
I'm trying
yeah,
to make contact with somebody, but it's I'm working on it. So I'm not making contact. So maybe that's the better phrase, but it's like, I'm working on it. I'm getting in touch. I'm reaching out to that person because, there's
yeah,
a little bit of, you need them to get back to you, or they don't, and then you just move on. But
right, right.
that was something that you took from me. I don't know how you did it, but it was identified and then it was gone and off and running. So
You're awesome to work with. You
I,
really are. It's like you're like one of those that you take the information, you just like run with it, and it's like, star.
just
Yeah.
just and from my perspective, it's always been looking for the information. I can, if I have it and I know what to do with it, or I'm sorry, not even that. If I have it, I can figure out what to do with it. Or it's like, here, go do this, or I want you to think about this. It's like, I can that, yeah, I can do that. You know, and it goes the
Yeah.
same with networking. Like, you can ask people for favors, or if somebody asks you for something, you can do it, or you don't have to. Like, I craved that information.
Yeah.
How do I feel better about myself? How do I get stronger?
Yeah.
How do I move
You're
forward?
and that's like, and not everybody has to be hungry, right? But there is
True.
something, and
Yeah.
everybody has their own time frame of getting through things. But
Yeah.
yeah, that hunger
Absolutely. Yeah.
will get you there pretty quickly.
And when you want it, and that's the big thing, because I know I've introduced you some people, and it hasn't gone, or maybe they just weren't ready. It's
Or they
hard to
got the
say.
information they needed at the time. There was enough, and you never know when they
Yeah.
might want more, right?
Yep. Absolutely.
Everybody's got their own speed.
Yep.
It took
And it
me
has
years. I
to
mean,
be.
look, I started in 93, and it didn't all come together to me until like 2013, probably.
Mhm.
So it took me some time to like kind of dabble in it, come out, dabble in it, come out. And then I just got to a point where like enough seeds were planted that it accumulated and started snowballing.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Much like a network. So so here we are. We're kind of at the end here. What's coming up? What's coming up next for you?
So I want to finish my book.
Mhm.
So I'm like writing in that little by little.
Mhm.
And I'm also working with one of my clients who is a CMO, and she wants to start looking at going into corporations and revamping, the whole structure, and bringing in my map into the corporate world. And so
Mhm.
that's something that we're taking a look at and dabbling in, and starting to create some momentum there.
Mhm.
And but my big thing on my list is like creating some online courses so that people have more access to this information.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's a great product. It's a great idea to do. I know I recently have completed one. I'm just waiting for it to go live. So that's
Yay,
yeah, that's
good
kind of
for
cool.
you. There's a lot of work and energy put in that.
right. And it
Oh my
started
gosh,
this,
the
this,
content writing.
yeah, this is what I like, what is going out, that will be going out, that's been recorded, that's ready to go live, is a conversation that started with you. That was,
Oh,
I want to do a networking course.
yeah,
Okay, well, what does that look like? I don't know. Well, essentially look it up. Okay, and we're reading,
awesome.
right now. Yeah, so like that's kind of like, I've put it. Obviously, you sat through it before. I've delivered it before, but this is kind of a different like long term. I would say long term, but this is something where I'm, you know, uh, it's kind of latent, where I'm putting it out there, and then as people can buy it or they don't, or either way, and then then it
Yeah,
comes back to me.
yeah.
So yeah.
I have one of my other clients. She just ran her first webinar yesterday, and it's like a 4-week course. And it's like,
Cool.
yes, she's just like
Yeah.
taking, it wasn't what she'd ever thought about before. She never thought she'd be doing something like this, but she found a passion, her
Hmm.
purpose.
Hmm.
And now she's creating courses and all kinds of things. So I love to see you guys rocking
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's
Awesome.
easy to do. We've got good leadership on that, and a good role model. So are you still taking clients? Will you take private clients still? Or
Yeah,
you?
absolutely. Yes. I'm
Okay.
still taking private clients at this point. Yes.
Okay. And does it need to be relationship coaching? I know that's kind of where you're focusing.
Yeah. So my focus is relationship, but if you
Okay.
really think about what relationship encompasses, it's the relationship with yourself.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so when you get the relationship with yourself right, then everything shifts outside of that.
100%.
So, the lady that I'm working right now in corporate, she actually came in to work with the relationship with herself because she was having relationship challenges.
Okay.
But how we do anything is how we do everything. So the challenges that showed up here were challenges that showed up there. And so when she started getting solid and laying that foundation within herself, the transformation she made within her corporation was huge. Like so
Right.
many things began to change as a result.
Sure.
And she didn't come in for corporate coaching. She came in
Right.
for personal coaching, but it shifted her finances, her work atmosphere, her relationships, her relationship with her child. You know, it just transforms
Wow.
everything.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
somebody, I'm not a parent, so that sort of thing doesn't even typically hit my radar until I hear somebody say that. It's, oh yeah, boy, if you're getting better,
Yeah.
that's and your mom and your dad, like, boy, how that the ripple effect them. I mean, that would be pretty immediate too, with the, or at least the possibility of
Yeah.
it with your family and the people that you're around the
Yeah.
most.
And the fun
Next would be work.
Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
absolutely.
Cool.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah, it's great
yeah.
transformations in the family.
It's
Yeah.
oh yeah, it would be, that would be huge. How do people find you?
They can find me at adrianneluban.com, ADRIANNE,
Mhm,
Luban, LUB as in boy, AN.com.
mhm.
That would be one way. You can find me on Facebook by just putting in my name. You can find me on Instagram, and you can get a hold of me from all those various places through Craig.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me know. If you got my information, I'm happy to put you in touch. And I'll tag you and put your website up on when we post this. And boy, there was a lot covered. I think when we got on this, I said, 30, 45 minutes. We're at an hour and 20 right now, or close to it. I know we had a little rocky start getting going there, but this was fantastic. Some of this stuff was new to me. We had talked, obviously you and I have a lot of contact and we talk a lot, and we've learned a lot about each other, but which is why, from my perspective, if I can put you in front of as many people as I can put you in front of, um,
Thank you,
yeah,
Craig.
I think I owe it to my network, friends, family, to hear you, to really experience what I got, even though, I mean, this is just a taste. This is just a taste. We're not even talking about scratching the surface. This is just a taste of what it is. And quite honestly, I know I have more to go. And obviously I know that you're there and I can get in touch with you anytime. And we can,
Absolutely.
but anyway, well, I know you got things to do, so we're going to let you go. But thank you so much for taking the
Thank you.
time.
This was fun. This was
Yeah,
a
I
new
know.
experience for
I
me.
I had a great time. Yeah. So hang tight with me. I'm going to go off here, but everybody, thank you again for tuning in. I appreciate your time. Thank you for if you've made it the whole way through this. Thank you for listening. I know there's been some value here. Please, if you have challenges, if you have issues, if you want to have a better relationship with yourself, which then not fixes, I almost said that, but affects everybody. If you being a better you, reach out to me, reach out to Adrian. We will help you, no doubt. So that's all I got. Hope you have a great one. Talk to you real soon.
Ciao for now.